Let's get more on the situation now as the South African National Roads Agency is calling for caution in the wake of the devastating floods which have damaged several roads in Mpumalanga. For more on this, we're joined by Sinenkosi Dlamini, who's SANRAL Operations and Maintenance Manager in Mpumalanga. Mr. Dlamini, good to have you on the program this evening despite the circumstances. Maybe let's first set the scene here for our viewers. We've seen some of the images, but how severe is the current impact of the heavy rains and also the flooding on national roads in Mpumalanga?
Good evening to you and your viewers. Indeed, the situation is devastating on the ground. I think that as SANRAL, we would just firstly want to convey our most sincere condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones, at least 20 families in Mpumalanga and 11 at this point in Limpopo. So as SANRAL, we would like to pass our condolences to those families. Yes, the impact has been severe on the ground, especially on the road infrastructure, which is what we look after as SANRAL. The impact has been mainly in terms of the national road network, has been has affected mainly the Ehlanzeni district, which is the area that includes Mbombela itself, Bushbuck Ridge, Nkomazi, and Tabachwe local municipalities. That's where, in terms of the national road network, we've seen most of the impact. It's concentrated in those areas. We have been able to respond somewhat to some of the impact. We have teams on the ground which are already looking at the impact of what has happened and assessing the level of damage on our various roads in Mpumalanga.
You mentioned Ehlanzeni, but which areas or routes are of the greatest concern to SANRAL right now, and why have they been prioritized?
Yeah, so the routes that have been affected the most would be in Ehlanzeni, particularly the R40. It's a major artery between Swaziland through Mpumalanga all the way up to Limpopo, so it's been affected. Also, the R37 has been affected, and the R36, which is between Leidenburg and the N4, going from Mashishing to the N4. So those are the main routes that have been affected. We have also had impact on the R582, which is in Nkomazi. A bridge there has had to be closed. That's all the information that you will have seen in the the press release that we released this morning.
Yeah, let's pick up on that. As SANRAL, you've advised motorists to completely avoid the R582 Section 1. What makes this stretch particularly dangerous at this stage?
Well, what has happened there is that what you have there on the R582, you've got a low-lying bridge above the Komati Port River. And so what is happening is that the water has overtopped the bridge, and because of the debris that is coming from upstream that has come with the water because of the huge volumes of water, the bridge has been overtopped with an amount of water that would really not be safe for motorists to use. So that is why we have closed that road for the moment.
Yeah, Mr. Dlamini, on roads like the R40 between White River and Hazy View, traffic is still moving under control measures. What specific risks should motorists then be aware of when using these sections?
I think it's going to be important throughout this period until these rains subside, and we as SANRAL and our professional teams are able to go out and really assess in detail what has taken place and the magnitude of the damage and so on. It's going to be important for road users really to exercise caution on the roads. So they must maintain safe following distances. They must adhere to the speed limits, and in most cases, drivers must really reduce their speeds and drive at low speeds because it really is dangerous out there at the moment. What happens with huge rains also is that, of course, on the R40 in particular, you have at certain points you have very steep cuts, which means that you also have some dislodging of soil and rocks that end up falling onto the road. And so that can really happen at any point. And so drivers need to be cautious because of that. And it helps if you are driving slow under those kinds of conditions.
Yeah.
Also, the amount of water on the roads does mean that the road surface becomes slippery for drivers. And so drivers are really advised to exercise caution.
Let's speak about that. The R36 between Leidenburg and the N4 is also being described as extremely slippery due to gravel conditions. So how does SANRAL then manage safety on gravel sections during persistent rainfall?
That part of our network, it's a section of road that was part of a bigger project that was under construction. A full rehabilitation was taking place there, and that part of the road is a part of the road that remains incomplete. So it's not necessarily that it's a gravel road that is meant to be a gravel road permanently. It's a part of the road that is due for a rehabilitation in due course. But at this point, what we just want to continue to advise road users to remain really vigilant around that, because there is not a lot that we are able to do, because we are also thinking about the safety of our teams as well. So we put out notices and we close roads in order to prioritize the safety of the road users. So there are roads where avoidance is going to be the best measure, and avoiding some of the routes.
Yeah. Sinenkosi, as we wrap up our conversation, can you explain what SANRAL's engineering assessment process involves, especially when floodwaters have not yet subsided so far?
Yeah, so as I've said, there are areas that we are able to access. So we have road patrol teams that patrol and inspect our road network on a regular basis. So those teams are still active. There are areas where it may become dangerous even for our teams to go into, and that's why I said some of the roads we would close for that reason. But once the rains have subsided, then we are going to go in and really do a full inspection. But it is important to prioritize the safety of road users, as well as the safety of the professional teams with which we work.
Yeah, and very quickly before we end, is there a hotline or any means to communicate with SANRAL, especially if there's a broken road infrastructure or some problems on the road in Mpumalanga as well? Yes,
I just do not have it handy at this point in time. But yes, we do have those kinds of details. So our communications team, which I know that you've been in contact with, will be able to provide those details to you. And I must apologize for that.
Not a problem. Sinenkosi Dlamini, he's SANRAL's Operations and Maintenance Manager for the Mpumalanga province. Thanking him for joining us and for speaking to us about the critical work that their teams are doing, especially under these challenging conditions.